Metallica is the biggest metal band of all time.
Our next guests are beloved well into the far corners of the planet Earth.
But drumming for the biggest metal band of all time is not easy. In fact, some would say it's nearly impossible. From going deaf to being hated around the world, and even your drumming being used to torture prisoners, being Metallica's drummer is an impossible job. This is Lars Ulrich, and he is one of the most loved and hated drummers of all time.
Lars ruins the band. See headline.
At just age 13, Lars received his first Ludwig drum set from his grandma. This made Lars obsess over rock music and playing the drums, constantly learning songs from his favorite bands. Now, it seemed that this young drummer had everything he needed to become a prodigy, but something got in the way. Yeah, so the drummer of the biggest metal band of all time wanted to be a pro tennis player? I can't decide if that's the most or least metal thing I've ever heard.
I tried out for the tennis team at the high school and I didn't make it, so I didn't stand a chance. I literally walked away from it the next day.
He reconsidered his career path and decided to take his drumming much more seriously. I think quitting tennis worked out for him because it led him from playing in his bedroom to playing the biggest concert of all time. Being Metallica's drummer is a big deal. Can you imagine performing in front of 1.6 million people? Yeah, that seems pretty impossible, but Lars is just getting started. To be Metallica's drummer, you can't be afraid to perform in front of millions, but there's one audience who was afraid, and it was the prisoners that were tortured with Metallica's music.
When you found out that Enter Sandman and other Metallica songs are being used in Iraq and in other detention facilities as sort of this way to torture people, essentially.
It all seems so bizarre.
That's right. In 2008, it was revealed that the US military had been blasting Metallica's music at insanely loud volumes as a tactic to break down the mental state of prisoners. Apparently, the government was a fan of the song Enter Sandman, which was one of the more popular choices to be used for torture, which just so happens to be one of their most popular songs to listen to in the real world.
If I listened to Metallica 24 hours a day, it would be torture.
But as a drummer, I think we all know that the ultimate form of torture would be to lose your hearing. And that is exactly what's been happening to Lars. Metallica's music has caused permanent hearing damage for their drummer Lars. This is all thanks to his lack of hearing protection on stage and in the studio. He's even mentioned repeatedly waking up in the middle of the night to turn the TV off, only to realize that it was never even on. Can you imagine what it would be like to live with this constant ringing in your ears all the time?
It never sort of goes away. It never just stops.
Is being the drummer in the world's biggest metal band worth the hearing loss? Let me know in the comment section below. Now, playing for one of the biggest bands while going deaf is a nearly impossible task. But let's just add that to the list, because coming up, we're talking about his psychotic recording sessions, overcoming the fact that his own band wants him out, and dealing with the loss of a beloved band member. Speaking of hearing, someone who hated hearing Lars' drumming was his fellow bandmates themselves.
We have to start it again?
Why don't you try getting a more solid beat?
Regular?
Oh, well, you can call it regular.
And maybe that's because Lars is known for how much he absolutely hates practicing.
Yeah, you got it.
I hope so. You know, I'd never really taken lessons. I just wanted to be in Diamond Head and Motorhead, and it was like, oh, you have to learn to play the instruments. I mean, I just wanted to be in a karaoke heavy metal band.
Yeah, normally I would recommend actually practicing your instrument to get better at it. And that's why I created this free 4-part course called the Master Drummer Roadmap that will help you perfect your practice routine and take your drumming to the next level fast. Click right up here to get it for free. When Lars was just 18 years old, he finally got the courage to audition for a band, which just so happened to have his future Metallica bandmates in it. But the audition didn't go great for him. I thought Lars was the worst drummer I had ever heard in my life. He couldn't keep a beat, he just couldn't play. So I told James, this guy sucks. And the insults ran deeper because even Metallica's future frontman disliked Lars not only for his drumming, but for a completely different reason.
I've heard James tell this story 1,000 times. It's always Lars being the Danish person he hadn't washed in 2 months or whatever. So it was all these like, I've heard his side of it, now you're hearing my side of it.
But none of this stopped Lars. He wanted to play in a band, so he decided to start one himself. He started posting ads in local papers, looking for other metal musicians to jam with. And despite Lars' smell, James Hetfield answered the call, and Metallica would be born.
My first wife here.
Even to this day, Lars and James remain the only 2 original members within Metallica because Lars never gave up his pursuit of drumming. But how in the world did a drummer who hates practice and bandmates think he sucks create epic tom parts like in Enter Sandman? Or how did he create the bombastic double kicks in Saint Anger? Or come up with his controlled chaos beat in One? How did a drummer who apparently couldn't keep a beat go on to get 9 Grammys? Well, he did it through developing his own style. It started with creating an insanely unique sound with his signature 14 by 6.5 3mm steel snare by Tama. For someone whose drumming is widely criticized, his snare drum is actually pretty highly praised.
Don't try this at home, kids. It may piss the neighbors off.
And then he did something that no other drummer had done before him.
The one thing that happened with wood sticks all the time, which was a real bummer, especially on stage, was that they always broke.
He revolutionized the drumstick. Well, kind of. Lars's signature drumsticks are made out of metal. Yeah, metal. Not wood, metal. They come with a plastic coating that goes over them, and if you think that these sticks didn't absolutely destroy my cymbals growing up, you'd be wrong. But Lars didn't only develop a unique sound, he developed a unique playing style that has a massive role in creating Metallica's iconic sound. He did this by utilizing 3 simple concepts. 1, the off-time cymbal. Number 2 was popularizing the cymbal choke. And number 3 was his fast, driving, open hi-hat beats. Lars literally changed the way that the industry and especially the metal scene approached drumming.
I would come up with drum ideas that Hetfield would write riffs to, like Justice for All. I was trying really hard to push the drums into the foreground. After like a year or two of that, I was like, do your thing, chill out, support the riffs, do what's best for the song.
Lars has set out to do what he wanted to do. And what he wanted to do was play the drums and play it his way. And this has created some serious controversy.
Period! Exclamation point!
But his simple playing style has helped craft music that is loved by millions of people around the world. But it's also hated by many around the world.
That's a nice way to start the period. While Lars has never been regarded as one of the all-time great drummers.
Lars has his fair share of haters, but it's clear that Metallica would not exist without him. And despite all the criticism for his sound and technique, it's only impossible to imagine the band without his iconic style and sound to support the music. But unfortunately, the troubles of Metallica's drummer go much beyond being hated by the public. We're talking psychotic recording sessions, tragedies that almost tore the band apart, and concerts that left fans rioting.
And it's only gonna get sillier.
And it was wild when Metallica wanted to kick Lars out of the band.
This is hard to play, dude. It's
Just if you play it perfectly, we can go home.
Yeah, but what are we gonna do for the rest of the weekend?
Good point.
The band wanted Lars out because of his playing, because of his attitude, but there was also some business drama happening in the background.
I think at one point or another we were pissed off at Lars. We were unhappy and we might have like grumbled something to someone. And then that person might have like picked up on it and made it something a lot bigger than it actually was.
But that wasn't the only time that the band was frustrated with Lars, because it seemed like any time they entered the studio, Lars had some psychotic recording sessions.
I told you straight up that I was.
Right.
And what are you trying to do?
You're just sitting there being a complete
Metallica's bassist has said that during the recording of Metallica's Black Album, Lars insisted on taking more than 70 takes of a single song called Nothing Else Matters. And to make things way, way worse, Lars changed his drum head after every single take. That is seriously insane. Now, I recently found out how many hits it takes to break a snare head. Trust me, it is more than a single take of a song. Click here to watch the video to find out how many hits it does take to break a snare head. But despite all the craziness, his bandmates have been quoted as saying that he has a lot of drive, and that's part of the reason why they love him so much. And yeah, 70 takes for one song is pretty intense. And if that's what it takes to be Metallica's drummer in the studio, what is it like to be Metallica's drummer on stage? Lars is an absolute maniac on stage. Not only will he run from one drum kit to another, but when performing in front of millions of people, he absolutely smashed his hand on his snare drum. Now, I've seen some blood on snare drum heads before, but this is maybe some of the most I've ever seen. To be Metallica's drummer, you have to be more than just a drummer. You have to be an artist, a performer, and a showman all at the same time. And trust me, it is not easy to keep this much energy throughout all of Metallica's shows. In fact, Metallica has been known to play 160 shows in just 1 year's time. To put it into perspective, most pro athletes play less than half of that in a given year, plus a lot more time to rest. And when you're smashing your hand and playing songs up to 220 BPM every single night, things start to break down. Not only does your physical body break down because drummers burn so many calories at every single show, but that can start to make your mental break down as well.
I'm scared. What if something happens?
And that was the case for Lars, because one show would change everything.
One of us didn't quite make it here. Lars has gone to the hospital.
It seems that all the chaos and the physical pain that he was in caused him to have a panic attack, which forced him to go to the hospital before the set.
We've been going pretty hard for most of the year, as you're aware of. And I think that the part of the last 6 months of playing Super Duty metal and traveling all over the world at my age kind of caught up to me a little bit.
Was this the end of Lars? Well, fortunately, the band was still able to play the show, with several other drummers like Slipknot's Joey Jordison filling in the role.
When do we get masks? We need masks.
And after Lars missed his first show in 20 years, he would never miss one again and hasn't ever since. Which was good, because I don't think he wanted to miss this next gig to play for some penguins and polar bears.
Not only has Metallica actually played all 7 continents now, we've played all 7 continents in 2013.
But this show was not like the rest. In order to protect the polar bears and not endanger the environment, the band couldn't use any amplification. Lars literally had to fight against the forces of nature to pull off this show. But not all of Metallica's tours have been fun and exciting. Earlier on in Metallica's touring career, they experienced a tragedy that they almost never recovered from.
Mr. Cliff Burton, all right.
As the band was traveling in between shows, something went horribly wrong and their tour bus flipped.
Later on that night, at about 5 or 6 in the morning, I heard a skidding, I heard a vibration, and then this motion. I thought we were going off a cliff.
The sound of screeching brakes and being flipped around like a piece of clothes in a dryer.
This accident was so severe that it resulted in the death of the original bassist, Cliff Burton.
I was in such shock that everything else for the next 3 or 4 hours, I can't even remember.
I could never imagine losing one of my bandmates. It would be almost impossible to keep going. But that's what makes Lars so special. He's able to keep pushing forward no matter the impossible circumstances that get in his way. To be Metallica's drummer, not only do you have to fight the impossible emotional battles, sometimes you have to also fight the impossible legal battles. Metallica is famously known for their massive lawsuit with Napster, and this went on to Lars speaking to the United States Senate. Yeah, it was that big.
It started off a street fight, and then like a month later, it was like, whoa, okay, look at this.
Napster was responsible for stealing millions of songs from a ton of artists.
Whoa, we're not stealing, okay? We're just sharing with each other, you know?
So it's like if I take this soda can right here, take a sip out of it.
Oh my God, I'm sharing my soda with Lars Ulrich.
Lars and Metallica played a huge role in taking down Napster and making sure that all artists were getting fair compensation for their music.
We were saying it should be our choice. If we want to give our stuff away, we'll give our stuff away. I mean, that's a no-brainer, but that should be our choice. That choice was taken away.
Whether you like his drumming or not, that seems like an amazing gift to all musicians. And all of Lars's hard work paid off in 2009 when he and Metallica were inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, and Lars would be the first Danish person to ever be inducted.
I think rock and roll is about possibilities and about dreams, and the fact that the 6 of us can be up on the stage tonight, snot-nosed kids, outcasts, loners, anything is possible if you just have the guts to believe it.
And the next drummer that I think needs to be inducted into the Hall of Fame is Travis Barker.